question is that this House do now adjourn. Nick Fletcher.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. On July the 13th this year, Peel shocked my constituency with the announcement of the potential closure of Doncaster Sheffield Airport. This is the reason for the debate. Let me tell the House the story. I'll start with the place, then the stakeholders, how we got here, where we are now, questions for this House, and finally, one last glimmer of hope. The place. Doncaster Sheffield Airport was originally RAF Finley. I remember going there as a very young boy, back of a Ford Escort, sat between two older brothers, legs sticking to black vinyl seats. Not a pleasant journey, but oh, when I got there. Seeing Concorde for the first time, the red arrows, Harrier jump jets lifting vertically from the ground and then bowing in front of us before roaring off into the distance. The deafening sound of the Vulcan. What wonderful memories. Sadly, Finley closed in 1996, but to the joy of the people of Doncaster and beyond, the airport reopened in 2005 as Doncaster Sheffield Robin Hood Airport. Silly name, but that's for another day. I was fortunate enough to fly from there the second day it opened. It was a wonderful place, and you can see why it is now so dear to me and my constituents. Now I have briefly talked about the place, I want to talk of the stakeholders. We have the employees who are to lose their jobs, the businesses that will no doubt have to move, and the public who love our airport. Peel, the landowners and operators of Doncaster Sheffield Airport, the Combined Authority and its elected mayors, past and present, Doncaster Council and its mayor, central government, and me. Let us talk people first. The airport has won many awards. It is a great building in a great place with a great car park, but it's the people that make it. The friends of Doncaster Sheffield Airport, the staff of DSA, the contractors that make it all work, the firefighters and security who keep all safe. The businesses on site and in the hangars nearby, 2XL, Yorkshire Aero Club, to name just a couple, TUI and their staff, and the public from across the region. All these have been amazing and have kept me going through their continued work to keep the airport open in tough times. The tens of thousands who have signed petitions, a Facebook page of 15,000 people. Great people, all wanting to save the airport. To all of them, I say thank you. Now let me talk of the two key players, Peel and the Combined Authority. Peel is a huge landowner across our country. Board members include John Whittaker, Steve Underwood, Robert Huff. Peel owns Sheffield Airport. They closed that and built houses on it. They also own Teesside Airport and would no doubt have closed that if it had not been saved by Mayor Ben Houchin. Peel has a precedent for doing this. The Combined Authority. Oliver Coppard is Mayor of our Combined Authority. Oliver has been in position since May this year. Prior to this, it was the Right Honourable Member of Barnsley. Oliver has devolved powers and monies. What does this mean? Let me explain. When people are asked do they want more powers locally, every time people will say yes. Why wouldn't they? And this is what's happened here. In 2018, under the leadership of the Right Honourable Member from Barnsley, South Yorkshire became a combined authority with an elected mayor. This means powers move from the central government, this place, to the combined authority, now led by Oliver. Our mayor has powers over economic growth, education, infrastructure, transport. He also has a substantial amount of money he can use to drive growth. This is gain share money and is set out as £30 million a year for 30 years, a total of £900 million. He can borrow against this too. So they are the key players, Peel and our mayor. DMBC. Doncaster Council are the local authority where the airport sits. They have compulsory purchase powers and obviously deal with planning. The council is led by an elected mayor too. Government. Where does government sit? Well, if these powers are devolved, there are only so many levers it can use. The use of the Civil Contingencies Act 2004 has been raised by members. I too have written to the Secretary of State on this issue. The Civil Contingencies Act states that if there is disruption to a service that could cause potential loss or injury to human life, then this act could be used. Why is this so relevant here at Doncaster Sheffield Airport? For those that don't know, our airport has on-site companies that offer Coast Guard and oil spill services for central government. We also have the National Police Air Service operating from a specialist built facility. Good people doing good things across our nation. When I read about the Civil Contingencies Act, I too believed this was a way forward. Sadly, at least at present, it appears not. I spoke with the company who offer these services, and although there may be disruption to their business operation, they can still offer these services. Is this argument dead? Maybe not, but it does not appear to be as fruitful as first thought. Maybe the Minister can advise. So what can the government do? Well, it can use the weight of its office and its department to press for combined authorities and companies to do the right thing. I would like to thank Baroness Veer and my right honourable friend, the member from Witney and West Oxfordshire, for their help and support. The PM at the time said we must do all we can to protect DSA. I believe they have done much. Some may wish they could do more. So do I. But that, I'm afraid, is devolution. For them to do more would mean to return powers back to government. Maybe that is the real answer. Finally, there is me, a backbench MP. Let me tell the House what I've done. Well, no. Let's just say much. This debate is not about me. It's a debate about saving Doncaster Sheffield Airport and any other regional airport in the future. We have spoken of the site and we have spoken of the stakeholders. The question is, how did we get here? It has to be said, as much as Peel have annoyed me more than most over these past 3 months, they have at least put their money where their mouth is in the past. Many people believe that Yorkshire Way, which is a wonderful road that connects the M18 directly to Doncaster Sheffield Airport, was paid for by the taxpayer. No, much of this £60 million project was private investment, £11 million from Peel themselves. As much as I would like to hold Peel over the coals at this stage, I cannot. As Madam Deputy Speaker, the sad fact is Peel sought financial support from the Combined Authority for approximately 3 years in the form of an equity share worth £20 million and then reluctantly in the form of a loan. For 3 years, I have been informed Peel were led a merry dance by the Combined Authority, which provided a catalogue of excuses and delays without clear process. I have been led to believe that firstly they claimed there was no money, despite devolution. Secondly, they failed to grasp state aid issues and made no efforts to lobby on this. And finally, environmental concerns were the reason the £20 million loan was not even put to the leaders of the Combined Authority in March of this year. I'll gladly give way.
I congratulate the Honourable Member for Don Valley. I think we're all here to support him and we want to engage in a constructive debate. I have to say that what he's been told is not the case. And if I'm fortunate enough to catch the Deputy Speaker's eye, I will very clearly articulate what the Mayoral Combined Authority did for Doncaster Sheffield Airport and to support Peel over the period that I was the Mayor. So I completely understand why the Honourable Member has made that point, but I can assure him, as I can assure all members, for the period from 2018 through to the point of the mayoral election, we worked incredibly hard to support Peel and to work with the airport. And if I get the chance later on, I'll be very clear about precisely what we did.
Thank the Honourable Member for his contribution, and I will come on further to that because I want a public inquiry to find out and get to the truth of this. But I do cover this on the speech. The Combined Authority appear to have never properly embraced Doncaster Sheffield as its own airport and badly underestimated the economic loss to the region. They were complacent of Peel and favoured investment closer to their own patch in Sheffield. This region has failed to behave sensibly under devolution, continuing to act in silos rather than devising and implementing a cohesive economic plan. The economic loss could simply be catastrophic. I asked Peel if the £20 million had been made available this April, would we be in this position? They said no. Let me just leave that there for the House. If the £20 million had been made available, Doncaster Sheffield Airport would not be closing. The Combined Authority may disagree, but the fact remains is that £20 million never appeared, and Peel have said that it is the fault of the Combined Authority. And that is why I want a public inquiry. If this is not the truth, then what is? A public inquiry will find this out. I'll gladly give way.
And I'm very grateful to the Honourable Member for giving way. He's been very generous with his time. In April of 2022, DSA indicated that they did not wish to continue developing the loan proposal at that time. So it's hard for me not to conclude that what the Honourable Member has been told, and I think he's presenting it here tonight in good faith, but what he has been told is not the case. Let me just put one point to him very quickly, if I may. He's raised concerns about devolution and the process, and both today and previously, he's referenced the powers and the money that has been invested in the Mayor. Just for the sake of clarity, I think it'd be incredibly helpful if he could say precisely what powers, he mentioned the game share, and precisely what money he thinks the current South Yorkshire Mayor should be deploying in support of the Doncaster Sheffield Airport. What powers and what money?
I thank my honourable member for his contribution. I think maybe what we need to happen is sit down with the Mayor for Teesside and see how he worked it out, because I've been told that he has exactly the same powers as Mayor Oliver Coppard. Mayor Oliver Coppard has twice as much money as what he's done, and he's bought an airport and he's moving forward with it. With regards to the fact that they said they didn't want the loan on in April, I've been told, and this is why I want a public inquiry, and I've been very careful. I know I can say what I choose in this house, but I'm still extremely very careful about what I'm saying, because I'm telling the honourable member I've been led to believe. And what I'm saying is that I want a public inquiry so the people of Doncaster and South Yorkshire get to the bottom of this, because if what I'm saying is true, it's a disgrace. No, yes, of course.
I thank the Honourable for giving way, and again he's been generous. He was just asked a very direct question. It doesn't need a public inquiry to work out what the factual position is. So would he just say very clearly what powers he thinks the Mayor has to go in and intervene with Peel, who clearly don't want to engage and don't want to sell?
Thank the honourable member for his contribution. Exactly the same again. Peel didn't want to sell to Ben Houchin. They did sell to Ben Houchin. They did. It's no good sitting there and saying they didn't. They did. Oliver Coppard has twice the money. He has exactly the same powers. His job is economic growth for the area. Ben Houchin bought an airport off Peel that Peel never necessarily wanted to sell. I'm going to make some progress. The next question is, where are we now? The Combined Authority failed to set up an MDC. The MBC failed to start a compulsory purchase order. They both say they can't, but it's the threat that counts in a business deal. That is why I have championed the Civil Contingencies Act myself. It may not be viable, but it's the threat that counts. I've tried to work collegiately on this. But to be fair, they did on week 10, Friday before the announcement was to be made, the Combined Authority came up with a deal to cover Peel's losses for 13 months. And although this is not a Ben Houchin move, at least it was something. Peel do not lose any money. They get the local council, the Combined Authority and the government on side, and they get me off the back. 13 months from now, no buyer found, the airport still making a loss. Well, at least they've tried. Local jobs saved through a cost of living crisis, the airport supporting the local economy through this period, businesses on site given time to get their contingency plans in good shape, but no, they still say no. Madam Deputy Speaker, there is something Peel are not telling me. Again, a public inquiry is needed. Why would Peel want to annoy a local and central government, their customers, their staff, the local people and me, have their losses covered and still say no? There is something people are not telling me. Again, a public inquiry is needed. On the last week of the initial 6-week consultation, the Combined Authority's big idea was to put the airport on the market themselves. Now, these are the people that are in charge of economic growth for South Yorkshire. 5 weeks after me, a backbench MP who had wrote to Virgin, BA, Ryanair and numerous other airlines, our devolved authority in charge of economic growth went to the market. I really cannot get my breath. Day 45 of this saga, and the Combined Authority are only just going to market with our airport. I have tried to be collegiate throughout my time dealing with this, show a united front against Peel, but it has been harder than anyone can imagine. not being allowed to join meetings, and when I have, to sit and listen to every reason why things can't be done rather than reasons why they can be done. Finally, we have 3 consortia around the table with Peel. These talks went on through last week, and as yet I have heard no more. There is little time and people are about to lose their jobs. I have to ask if the combined authority had gone to the market in week 1 instead of week 5, we would have stood a better chance. I'm sure we would.
My honourable friend. Thank you for being so generous with your time. And can I just say, as a fellow South Yorkshire MP, how grateful I am, and I know many of us are in this House, for all the work that you've done, championing the airport, working tirelessly. Sorry, apologies, Madam Deputy Speaker, that my honourable friend has done on behalf of the people of South Yorkshire trying to rescue this airport. Does he believe that the economic and social value of this airport has been underestimated by local authorities and the combined authority? And if so, why does he think that is?
I thank the honourable friend for her contribution. Yes, massively. I genuinely believe that the combined authority, the word there is combined. Doncaster, Rotherham, Barnsley and Sheffield, combined, coming together. And I do not think the combined authority leaders, past and present, have told the leaders of those councils how important it is for the entire growth of this area and beyond. They've not sold it, they should have sold it. If they had sold it, then we wouldn't be losing our airport. As I said, we need a public inquiry to find out these reasons why. But I'm afraid the silo working that I've spoke about earlier is typical of Labour councils up and down the country.
I'm grateful to him giving way. He said a moment ago that the current mayor had twice the money in terms of comparison to Mayor Ben Houchin in Tees Valley. I'd be really grateful, and I'm sure the House would be most illuminated to hear the facts that underpin that, because that is not my understanding. Come back, though, to the crucial point around powers. What powers is it that the honourable member thinks is invested in the mayor that he's not using?
Just go to the money first. Pardon. The South Yorkshire Mayor has £30 million per year for 30 years. That's £900 million. Ben Houchin, the Mayor for Teesside, has £15 million a year for 30 years. That's £450 million. I believe we're 2 years behind where we should be because Doncaster and Barnsley mayors, councils, wanted to create a Yorkshire-wide mayoral, and so we ended up 2 years further on than what we should have been. But nevertheless, we are where we are. With regards to the powers, I've said again that we've got powers for setting up MDAs, we've got compulsory purchase powers, we have the community asset powers, we have all these different levers to be used, and unfortunately, none of them have been used. Let me carry on.
Thank you for giving way. I'm intrigued by these powers. I want to really drill down. I think this is where the nub of the issue really is where did the power lie? We've all seen the great success in Tees Valley with the Mayor Ben Houchin. We want to say, why is this not happening in South Yorkshire? So you talk about compulsory purchase powers. Exactly. So are you saying that if the Mayor wanted to, he could, with maybe Doncaster Council, buy the airport to save it, similar to what Ben Houchin does? He chose not to do that. Is that what you're saying?
The compulsory purchase powers sit with the local authority. Which they could have used. Now, the argument will be is that for you to get to use compulsory purchase powers, you've got to have gone through a stage of phases first. It has to be used at last resort, and I understand that. But the threat of it being used would have made Peel sit down at the table far sooner, and we may have stood a chance of saving the airport. Using compulsory purchase orders when the airport is closed, it's been asset stripped by the owners, is not going to help anybody. We are where we are, as they say, and I spoke a moment ago before the interventions that we have consortia around the table. Let us hope these next few days things can change. Madam Deputy Speaker, I could speak for another hour, but I know my time is limited. But I want to leave this House with 3 questions. First, what can this place do to stop this happening again? Should we make all airports community assets? Should any sale or closure of any airport have to be agreed by local mayors or the Secretary of State? Should any operator have to give a notice period, say 2 to 5 years? I don't know, but something must be done. Second, before any more devolution can take place, can it please be explained properly to the electorate what this means? I believe it's been a disaster for South Yorkshire so far. People really need to know what they are signing up for and voting for. Thirdly, can we have a public inquiry? I need the people of Doncaster to know what has happened. It's important. They really need to know where to put their cross the next time they vote.
Would my honourable friend give way? I'd like to thank my honourable friend for giving way and securing this important debate just before he winds up his excellent speech, in which he's actually clearly laid out what the issues are, the work that he's been doing to solve them, and also some solutions. Can I just say, as an MP that represents West Yorkshire, my constituents have lobbied me as well, because it's a regional airport that they use. So on behalf of them, more power to your elbow, and well done on everything that you've been doing, my honourable friend has been doing, to campaign for this important regional airport, Madam Deputy.
I thank my honourable friend for his contribution. It just proves the airport is used by people from all across the north of England and is such a fantastic asset. Peel have been stubborn, I believe desperately so, and their board, mainly John Whittaker and Robert Huff, will have to live with what they are trying to do, with what their legacy will be. But Madam Deputy Speaker, I am told John Whittaker is a good man, and he can stop this at the click of his fingers. The question is, will he do the right thing? I hope so. But Peel are a business, and businesses make profit. So although I don't believe greed is good, Peel are doing what businesses are supposed to do. They're making money. Sadly, I believe our elected mayors have not done what they are supposed to do. They have been left wanting, absent at first, then slow, and in the words of local business leader, chaotic. They have shown no vision and now only champion our airport when it's probably too late. Just look at the difference between our mayor's social media account and Ben Ouchin's. Our South Yorkshire mayor tweeting childish memes when the people he represents and who voted for him are losing their jobs and South Yorkshire is losing its future. While Ben Ouchin's media is littered with success stories of investment, jobs and giving an inspiring future for the next generation. No, if we lose our airport, Peel need to be held accountable, but the combined authority should be dissolved. It is not working, and it's not working for Doncaster. Our combined authority mayor is buying trams for Sheffield, while Doncaster gets second-hand buses and a closed airport. It's simply not good enough. And where is our Doncaster mayor? Nowhere to be seen.
Well, my honourable friend, give way. If, as reports appeal, are planning to sell the site or get rid of the site and build housing on it, could you confirm who exactly is going to benefit from the council tax rates? Will the South Yorkshire Mayor themselves directly be getting money from the ratepayers who buy those houses, and will Doncaster Council? And does he think there's anything weird about that sort of way of doing things?
I think my honourable friend has made a point there, and as I say, as part of that public inquiry, I'm hoping that these sorts of items can come out. I've always said throughout our campaign, keep the faith. I'm so saddened here. I know we can't keep an airport open because people are fond of it, but Doncaster people really are, and I am too. I therefore want to try and end with a note of optimism, that we still do have a glimmer of hope. The consortium of Peel are still in the room, and the combined authority offer is still on the table. And I want them to know, if they save our airport, I will be their champion, and so will the good people of Doncaster. It's a great airport, and with the right owner, and with the right support, I know it will be viable. I therefore ask Peel one last time, do the right thing. Reverse this ridiculous decision, accept the combined authority's offer, give the sale the time it needs, and let us turn Doncaster into the aerotropolis its founder, John Whittaker, once dreamed of.
Ed Miliband.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I speak as the constituency member for Doncaster North. I want to start by paying tribute to the honourable gentleman for securing this debate and his efforts to help Save the Airport, which he has talked about today. I also want to pay tribute to my friend, the Honourable Member for Doncaster Central, the Mayor of Doncaster, the South Yorkshire Mayor and their teams, as well as all of my colleagues, including our Shadow Transport Secretary. I also want to mention, Madam Deputy Speaker, Mark Chadwick of the Save DSA Facebook page, who, as the Honourable Gentleman has said, has run a brilliant campaign, and also the local trade unions who organised a rally on Saturday. Madam Deputy Speaker, it's 1 minute to midnight as far as the airport is concerned, and I think we in this House owe it to those workers who are at risk of losing their jobs and the whole community to work together and do absolutely everything we can in the days that we have left, not to point fingers, not to play the blame game, but to do absolutely everything in our power to try and keep the airport open. And that is the focus of my remarks today. Because I heard on Saturday from the workers at the airport, from people who'd worked there since 2005, since it had opened, and the uncertainty, the anguish, the sense of pessimism that they felt. And I think they are expecting us in this House to leave no stone unturned in seeking to keep the airport open. Now let's get the position clear. Responsibility for this decision lies with Peel. They have taken the decision. They have refused, Madam Deputy Speaker, the offer of a 13-month subsidy from the South Yorkshire Mayor to cover their losses to keep the airport open when while a buyer is found. Indeed, looking at the situation, one can only reach the conclusion that they are determined not to sell because they want to use the land for other purposes. So I have to say to the House, the problem with the idea that the airport should somehow be purchased by the South Yorkshire Mayor has one flaw at its heart, that Peel are refusing to sell. And the issue of the CPO, the compulsory purchase order, of course is important, but the point about CPO is it will take at least a year to go through that process. The airport will not... Of course I will, yeah.
I don't know if the Honourable Member's ever done a business deal. I really don't know. But the thing that you do, the thing that we do, is we put as much pressure on, using every lever possible. And we put it on from day one. And that way, when you've got the people in the room, you've got them thinking, is this going to happen? I've kept my mouth quiet all the way through this, not wanting to say the things that I've wanted to say because I've wanted to show a united front with the honourable members on that side of the House and with the Mayor. But it's just been like watching child's play fall out in front of my eyes. I mean, it's just... We use the levers that we've got, everything that we've got. We pile the pressure on, and hopefully they will sit down and talk to us. But if the thing, I honestly, truly believe if I had started this campaign on day one, this would have been swept under the carpet because nobody on that side of the House wanted it.
I honestly don't think that when he looks back at this debate that kind of partisanship does the honourable gentleman any favours. Of course the Council has talked about doing a CPO and has discussed it with him, but has tried to explain the time a CPO takes. Now, look, I think our focus needs to be on Peel. And we need a united message from this House that they can still do the right thing because there are credible bidders. And I urge them to accept the generous offer that has been made by the South Yorkshire Mayor as they are considering these bids from credible buyers. And I do say that if they do not do that, their name will be mud in the city and region forevermore, and it will be deservedly so. But I also want to make an appeal to the government through the Minister who is on the front bench. And I know it's not her area of responsibility. She's already answered one set of questions today about this. But I want to explain a little bit of the background, Madam Deputy Speaker, about the legal advice that we commissioned around the Civil Contingencies Act. The reason the Honourable Member for Doncaster Central and I commissioned this legal advice is because of the national dimension of the services run from the airport. The National Air Police Service, Search and Rescue, Maritime and Coast Guard Agency, Airport Fire Service, oil spill disbursement work and military activity. Now these are national activities, Madam Deputy Speaker. That's why we think the Civil Contingencies Act is engaged. And it's because of the short notice given to these services, told to cease operations, I believe by November the 18th, that it gives them very little time to prepare and find alternatives. Now, I want to read to the House briefly the legal advice from Lord Faulkner of Thoroton, who was one of the co-sponsors of the 2004 Civil Contingencies Act. This is not, a lawyer that we found sort of on the street. This is someone who was the Lord Chancellor, who was responsible for co-piloting this legislation through the House. And he says this, and we have made the legal advice available, but we can obviously make it available to members here if they haven't seen it. He says this: "It's my opinion that under the Civil Contingencies Act 2004, the Transport Secretary has clear legal authority to intervene," by the way, this is or any government minister, "to prevent the closure of Doncaster Airport due to the disruption of essential services run from the airport." And this is the key point. The shortness of the period before closure means for many, if not all of these services, an interruption of their life-saving services, and for some of them, potentially, a permanent reduction in quality. No doubt some of them will find alternative bases. How good they are and when remains to be seen. In this truncated timetable, in breach of the lease, there is the potential for disruption to these life-saving services. So Lord Faulkner, for those who are familiar with the Act, is applying the test in Clause 1 of the Act. And the test in Clause 1 of the Act defines an emergency as an event or situation which involves, causes or may cause loss of human life, human illness or injury, damage to property, disruption of facilities for transport, or disruption of services relating to health. And he says there is no doubt that the disruption or interruption of the services described above constitute an event or situation which, and he quotes, causes or may cause any one of the circumstances described above. Yeah.
Fletcher?
I want this to work. I want the Civil Contingencies Act to work. But I've spoken length with the people that are offering these services, and they've said there'll be no disruption to their services. Now, I actually asked with them. Now, it's not something I wanted to show on the floor of the House because we're showing us cards to peel again. The Honourable Member keeps on, the Right Honourable Member keeps on pressing this point. I've been through this. I've wrote to the Secretary of State. The Secretary of State's written to me back, and they said that they can't use it. Now, it's a Labour peer that's passing advice to a Labour Member of Parliament. Now, but I still backed it. I still went to the Secretary of State. I've tried this. I think we're taking away the argument that the reason why that we're here is that a £20 million loan never appeared, and that is why we're losing our airport. Now, we've got this consortia around the table. We've got Peel around the table. What we need to be doing now is pressing as much as we can for that to make a decision, for them to make a right decision. Going on about a Civil Contingencies Act, which we've gone through many times, it's not helping.
Honourable gentleman, because he keeps sort of wanting to play the blame game. There'll be time, if we don't succeed, there'll be time for him to do all the finger pointing. There'll be time for him to put it on his election leaflet and to try and blame the Labour Party. But don't do that now. Don't do that now while we're trying to save the airport. If he wants to do that, let him do that. But don't do that now. Let's work together to try and save the airport. Now, would it require boldness and commitment to use the Civil Contingencies Act? Yes, it would. But, and I have to say, he says that he's got clear advice from government. The Secretary of State won't even meet me. Madam Deputy Speaker, I've been in this House 17 years. I've never had the experience of a Secretary of State refusing even to meet me, or indeed other members of Parliament, or indeed the South Yorkshire Mayor over issues as important as this. So look, what I say about this is the government's position has been it will do everything it can to save the airport. Lord Faulkner is happy to make himself available. Let's get round the table with the Secretary of State. Maybe her advice will be there's nothing that she can do, but why not have the conversation? There's nothing to fear from the conversation. It's almost like the government thinks that somehow they will be culpable if they have the meeting and engage. They won't be culpable if they have the meeting and engage. They'll be culpable if they don't have the meeting and don't engage. And I'm afraid that's what they're doing. So, look, I'm going to end my remarks, because other people want to speak, by appealing to the Minister, who I know from another life she had when she was the Parliamentary Private Secretary to the President of the COP, and we had good relation. No, she did very well. I mean, we had a good relationship. Look, courtesy and commitment demands that we get round the table with the South Yorkshire Mayor, with members of Parliament, to leave no stone unturned. Maybe we won't succeed, but let's try and work together on this. Because time is incredibly short, and we owe it to all the workers, we owe it to the community to fight all the way until our options have run out. Responsibility lies with Peel. I appeal to Peel to do the right thing, but I also appeal to the government to get round the table with us and see whether there is a way forward.
Alexander Stafford.
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Honourable Member for Don Valley for not only securing this important debate, but also for his tireless work over the last 105 days to save our airport. And it really is our airport across South Yorkshire. Barnsley, Doncaster, Rotherham, Sheffield, but of course we've heard for the Honourable Member for Huddersfield, near Huddersfield, for West Yorkshire and across the country. The Honourable Member for Bassett Law notice here also showing support here how important it is for Nottinghamshire. It is a community asset. It's a community asset because it's something close to our heart. The Honourable Member for Don Valley has already mentioned, talking about Concorde, about the Vulcan. This is such an embryonic, important part of our history and our culture. But it's also about the jobs and economic and social value that it brings to our region. And I think, clearly in this debate, there's going to be many things we all disagree with. Clearly there already are. But we all agree with one thing. We want to save the airport. We want to make it work. We want to try and make it work. And no one here wants to play the blame game. Well, I think everyone, and I also believe the honourable members on the other side of the House, also want to push levers to put the pressure the honourable member for Don Valley was talking about on Peel. Because let's be honest, Peel are the ones ultimately at fault here. They're the ones, as we've seen in Sheffield itself, we've seen actually in Manchester, in Tees Valley, where they want to close airports and build housing estates, industrial estates, and get the rent. Let's be honest about what they're trying to do. However, we as members, elected members, want to get around and try and stop them doing that. In some places they have been successful, Peel being successful, and we've seen that in Sheffield, but in other places they have not been successful. And I think this is a very crucial point. It's not a partisan point. To look at a case study. I was a geographer at school, and we would like case studies, give an example of something. And the case study we have is Teesside and the Mayor of Tees Valley, where Peel in a pretty much similar situation. And yes, obviously we have more money in South Yorkshire than they do there, but pretty much the same situation. Peel wanted to sell the land for their airport and build houses industrial park. Now, I've looked at this quite intensely about why Ben Houchen has been so successful. And I do not believe it's just because he said, I want to save an airport. But he clearly did and has done. That wasn't his game. His game was, I want to make the Tees Valley a better place. Yeah. Better jobs, better community, better society. And the airport is part of that. And I think we do not have the same approach. We talk too much, I'd say, about the airport in isolation. Saving the airport. Of course it's important. What we should be talking about, how the airport in South Yorkshire is integral to the prosperity of South Yorkshire, how it fits in with the wider plans, where there's free ports, industrial zones, how it fits in with the bus franchising, which I know the members know I'm a big advocate of, how it fits in the wider communications plan. We cannot just see the airport in isolation, because ultimately that might fail. We need to see it in how it combines the whole of our regions together. And ultimately, of course.
I'm interested in what he's actually asking for. He must accept that in Teesside, the airport, there is costing an awful lot of public money. Now, presumably he is happy, is he, for the Mayor of South Yorkshire, if Peel agreed, to put just as much money in, maybe £20 million out of the £30 million a year. He then argues for franchising. Does he accept in the end there are choices that have to be made? It's not an unlimited budget the government's given the Mayor. He presumably wants everything to be spent out of this 30 million when it clearly isn't possible. So is he saying, open check to Peel, you can have what you want? Because that's what he seems to be saying in this instance.
I thank the Honourable Member for his intervention. Actually, he's brought my speech on a few words. What I'm asking for, frankly, is vision. What I'm asking for from the South Yorkshire Mayor is a vision of South Yorkshire. I want to know where South Yorkshire will be in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, in 20 years. I want to know what my children are going to experience when they're growing up in South Yorkshire. And I don't want them to have bus franchising here or just an airport there. I want to see South Yorkshire is going to be a better place. And this is how we're getting that. And we're talking about how much money here or bus franchising. Ultimately, we need that feed into the wider vision. Because after all, the whole point, I believe, of a South Yorkshire Mayor, or any Mayor, devolution, I still have my great reservations about the Mayor, the mayoralty, because I don't see that vision coming. And we talk about not being non-partisan. I will give a credit over to what's happening in Manchester, but as well as in Tees Valley, as well as in the West Midlands. The mayors there have visions of what they want their regions to look like. I do not know what our mayor had vision for our region. I know he does probably want to save the airport, and I know we're talking about bus franchising, but that's not a vision. And in order for the airport to work, it needs to be part of the wider vision of prosperity, how Sheffield is linked to Doncaster, from Barnsley down to Rotherham, how each part of it has that in it. And then, when the mayor has set out the vision, and I hope it's a very good vision, he then should use the levers, the powers available with him, to make that vision a reality. And say to the people of South Yorkshire, I have my vision, this is where the airport fits into it, and these are the levers I'm going to use, the power given to me by the government, the £900 million given by the government to make that vision happen. And he may or may not say we need to save the airport, but I want to see how that fits into it. I want to see how he's going to use it all together. We've already heard about various civil contingencies acts, we've heard about the £20 million loan and lots of things, but this is too piecemeal. The failure here is not necessarily the failure of the airport. The failure here was a vision. The failure here was the South Yorkshire Mayoral Authority. The success in Tees Valley is because the mayor there has a vision and knows what he wants to do and is combining it together. We do not have that in South Yorkshire. That is the ultimate failure. I'll give way to the floor there.
I'm just checking that the honourable member knows that there is a strategic economic plan. Included within it is a very clear articulation about the importance of the airport. Has he read it?
I thank the honourable member for giving way, and I'm talking about the current mayor, of course, but of course I've read the plan. And I'm talking about plan. We can all say where the airport fits in it, but that's not actually how it all links together. It's too piecemeal. And we may disagree about whether that plan is the correct plan. I would disagree. It's too piecemeal. We need to have that overarching vision and how it works together, and how the industrial zones work together, and the Freeport work together, because that is what we have to do to work together. And I must commend once again the honourable member from Don Valley, as I ran up, for his cross-party way of working. He's far, far nicer gentleman than me when it comes to working cross-party. Oh, of course I'll give way.
I'd like to thank the honourable member for giving way, and actually he mentions about cross-party working, and this is very similar to what we're trying to achieve with the honourable member for Colne Valley, where we're working with the South Yorkshire, the West Yorkshire, all the MPs and the mayors, are fully in agreement about the Penistone line, which is a transport-related project like this one. And I think, would he agree with me that actually it's really important that we do try and work together on a cross-party basis?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And of course I agree with the honourable member from Dewsbury. It is incredibly important to work cross-party, and that is why I'm saddened by some of the conversations that happened today, but also the urgent question earlier on, because we're not working cross-party. And I think there's too many red herrings being thrown about, civil contingencies or this law or all this stuff without working together. We need to unite together to pull all those levers to save our airport. And if necessary, we need to look at all options, including compulsory purchasing. Because we've dealt with this situation before in Tees Valley, and we beat Peel. The only difference now is we have a different mayor in charge, and that's the conclusion I can come to.
Stephanie Peacock.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I'd like to begin by congratulating the honourable member for securing this important debate. Thousands of jobs are dependent on Doncaster Sheffield Airport, and the stark reality is that there are only days left to save it. There have been a number of assertions today from the other side of the House that the Mayor has the powers to step in, but no one has been able to explain what these powers are. The ones that have been cited would take years to exercise, whilst Peel are not willingly offering the airport for sale. The reality is the South Yorkshire Mayor has made Peel Group an offer of public money to keep the airport running until next October. They have helped find 3 potential investors who are interested in purchasing the site and keeping the airport operational. These discussions are ongoing between the Peel Group and potential investors. They are non-political and we are hopeful for a positive outcome. But the Peel Group are still refusing to confirm whether they are willing to suspend closure and whether they are even in a position to sell DSA Limited. And if Peel are refusing to sell the airport, then the Civil Contingencies Act remains the only way to save it, as my honourable friend outlined. The party opposite does seem to be forgetting the assurances from the outgoing Prime Minister that the Secretary of State would address this issue immediately and protect the airport. These were made in the last few weeks, and I am still really disappointed that the Transport Secretary has not turned up today and the government are still refusing to meet members on this House, this side of the House, because this is a grave situation for people across South Yorkshire, for the thousands of workers whose employment relies on the airport, for local businesses, and of course for all all of us who rely on the emergency services stationed at the airport. It may well be the case that they can continue to fulfil their contractual obligations, but it will no doubt be disrupted. And I'd like to ask the Minister if she has met with the emergency services to discuss this. It is really imperative that ministers now step up, that we work together and they use their powers to do everything they can to save Doncaster Sheffield Airport.
Very good.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I begin by congratulating the Honourable Member for Don Valley, not just for securing this debate tonight, but for the tireless work that he has put in trying to save the airport. I think that is widely acknowledged. But as has been observed by a number of right honourable and honourable members tonight, we do need to work together. We can't afford for this to turn into a political row because the stakes of it are too high. I think all of us recognise that Doncaster Sheffield Airport is a huge economic asset for our region. South Yorkshire and the surrounding areas would be weakened and undermined if the airport were to close. So we all have an absolute responsibility to do everything that we possibly can. But as the Right Honourable Member for Doncaster North said, the focus has got to be on Peel. Now, I say this with all humility, but I have a pretty comprehensive understanding of the powers that are invested in the mayoralty and the money that is available to the mayor. For 4 very difficult years, I spent working with local leaders and with national government to make the most of that particular arrangement. And I was sorry to hear the honourable member opposite say that he doesn't think it's working for South Yorkshire. Many very, very senior members of his government and very many members on his side do think it's working for South Yorkshire, and I work closely with a number of government ministers to ensure that it did. Let me just make a bit of progress, then I'll give way. Because I just want to reinforce the very important point that the Right Honourable Member for Doncaster North made about making sure that Peel do the right thing. So a very good and reasonable offer from the Mayor was put to Peel. That offer would have enabled them to continue to operate the airport for up to 13 months. And that crucial 13-month period would have provided the time and space to ensure that the ongoing negotiations with the 3 parties that have stepped forward were given every chance to succeed. So even at this very late hour, I still hope that Peel, and I hope that they're watching in this debate tonight, that they do the right thing and they get back round the table with the Mayor and the combined authority and look at whether they might be prepared to reconsider. Happy to give way if the honourable member wants to.
Thank you. Thank the honourable member for giving way. I just want to go back to the fact that he believes that devolution's working for Doncaster. The CRSTS bid that went in was for £570 million. Now, £110 million of that £570 million was taken off the top straight away for the trams for Sheffield. And then the rest of the money, the £460 million, was then divvied up between Doncaster, Rotherham, Sheffield and Barnsley. Another item is the cultural monies that's just come to South Yorkshire. £1 million from central government to the South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority. How much did Doncaster get? £38,000, 3.8%. I just want him to confirm that the devolution is working for Doncaster people, because I don't think that it is.
Dan Jarvis.
What I can confirm, and I am frankly uniquely well placed to be able to confirm this, is that for the period of time where I was the mayor, I moved heaven and earth to work very closely with all of the local leaders to ensure that the money that we had available to commit was committed in a way that was fair and equal. And frankly, I am very proud of the fact that none of the leaders were ever able to come to me to say you were favouring Barnsley or Sheffield or Doncaster. He specifically made the point about the money that was invested in Sheffield in Supertram. A very, very legitimate question for him to raise. What I would advise him to do is to talk to colleagues on his own front bench, because it is almost always the case that as a mayoral combined authority, you are bidding for, and I hope the Minister would confirm this, because this was absolutely my experience and it was the experience of other mayors, you're bidding for pots of funding that are controlled by national government, and always it is the case that there are very strict rules governing the way in which that money can be spent. So whilst I was the mayor, I moved heaven and earth, and the honourable member will remember we had a number of good-natured, constructive conversations to ensure that Doncaster got its fair share, and I can look him and the House in the eye and say that Doncaster, along with Barnsley, Rotherham and Sheffield, always got their fair share. But there are issues relating to the way in which national funding pots are structured and created. You know, we don't really do devolution properly in this country. We don't devolve pots of money to mayoral combined authorities for them to commit based on their own priorities. The money that comes from Westminster and from Whitehall always has very stringent conditions attached to it. I don't think that that's how it should be, but that's the reality of how it is. Madam Deputy Speaker, I was sorry to hear the honourable member raise concerns, admittedly, that had been raised to him about the approach from the combined authority in recent years. I can categorically assure him and the House that over the 4 years that I was the mayor, we worked tirelessly to make sure that we did everything that we possibly could to invest not just in Doncaster Sheffield Airport, but in Gateway East, as the honourable member knows very well because it's in his constituency. Gateway East is an area that has huge economic potential for Doncaster, but for the wider region. And throughout my tenure as the mayor, there were numerous and significant interventions. So, just to give a flavour, so the honourable member might be a little bit reassured, he referred to the Great Yorkshire Way. And he also made the point, rightly, that there was private investment that went into the funding of the Great Yorkshire Way. But he should also understand, and I hope that he does, that in March 2017, the Mayoral Combined Authority provided £9.2 million for the construction of the Great Yorkshire Way. In March of 2019, we granted a loan of £3.5 million for capital works, helping to support a key source of the revenue at Doncaster Sheffield Airport. In March of 2020, a second loan of £5 million in order to enhance passenger capacity. In June of 2020, the MCA agreed to extend the £3.5 million loan period for the car park enhancement and defer all interest payments until 2024 to support the airport through the pandemic. The pandemic was clearly an incredibly challenging time for airports right around the world. And then in November of 2020, discussions about a significant equity investment began. And the MCA, and we took this very seriously at the time because I appointed my then chief exec to lead on the negotiations, and we appointed consultants to look very carefully at the business case. Now, it was ultimately determined that the investment would not comply with the subsidy control rules. Now, that was something that we sought to work around, and that's why at that point discussions started around a £20 million loan on the basis... I'm happy to give way, yeah.
The jewel in the crown of South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority, the one thing that can actually set the entire of South Yorkshire alight and bring investment into our area, and the Honourable Gentleman, Right Honourable Gentleman, has just come forward with, you've given £8.5 million loan in the last 5 years. An £8.5 million loan in the last 5 years. That's what it's had. 8.5 million in 5 years, the jewel in the crown for 1.8 million people's economic growth, economic future, and we've had an £8.5 million loan. The mayor has just spent 24 million, I believe, just on some new trams. I am lost for words. I am sorry, I am lost for words.
Well, the honourable member's got his maths wrong. I mean, the first thing I said was that there was 9.2 million that had gone into supporting infrastructure. And then I'm not giving way. I'll make a bit of progress. I then went on to detail a series of other financial interventions that were set alongside a huge amount of activity that was going in to support the airport. But here's the critical point, and I gave it to the honourable member earlier on. In April 2020, bear in mind, he will recall we were in Purda at that point. April 2022, the Peel Group indicated that they did not wish to proceed with the work around the £20 million loan. So that is that. I can tell him. No, I'm not just. I'm going to make some further points. I'm not giving way. I'll make some further points and then I'll give way to the honourable member in a moment. The truth of the matter is, and as I say it with all humility, I was there. I was in the room, did the meetings, had the conversation, directed my officers to do the work. We worked very closely with Mayor Ros Jones, who's been a tireless supporter of Doncaster Sheffield Airport for many years. And the truth of the matter is, we completely acknowledged the huge value that DSA added to our regional economy. And as part of the work that we were doing, underpinned by a strategic economic plan that I'm not sure that the honourable member for Rother Valley has read, but we produced a very detailed strategic economic plan. We produced a renewal action plan that provided the wider vision for the kind of economy.
Oh dear, point of order, but if it's about the contents of the honourable gentleman's speech, it's not a point of order.
Point of order. I said in my speech I had read it. He's now saying I haven't read it. For the record, to make it clear, you've got to say things within a few minutes after me saying one thing, completely contradicting. It's completely disingenuous.
No, we can't have disingenuous. Perhaps it could just be bewildering or something like that.
Bewildering, fine.
That would do. That would do. Now, it is obvious to me that there are differences of opinion about facts and interpretation of facts. That's why we have different sides of the House. That's why we have a system where everybody gets the chance to state their opinions and state their facts. So let's get heated about it. It's just fine. Dan Jarvis.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. I think the other really important point for honourable members to understand is that in addition to the significant financial interventions that were made, in addition to the clear recognition of the importance of DSA as part of the economic future of South Yorkshire, there were three other really important things that we did as well. And the honourable member knows about them because he and I discussed them at the time. I was always of the view that one of the greatest things that we could do to support the long-term economic viability of DSA was to continue to invest in the supporting infrastructure, to make it easier for people to get to the airport. And that's why my then officers, working very closely with Doncaster Council, did a huge amount of work to draw together the basis of a proposal that would have put an East Coast mainline station at Doncaster Sheffield Airport. So that would have been, I think, potentially transformative for the airport. And a lot of work went in, working very closely with Transport for the North, in drawing together the basis of that significant infrastructure proposal. Now, the honourable gentleman knows where we got to with that. That was a credible proposal that went forward to national government. And unfortunately, it wasn't supported by national government. Additionally, we also looked at what measures we could do to better enhance inter-regional connectivity. I was very conscious of the fact that there were things that we could have done, transport infrastructure interventions that we could have made, that would enable local people within the South Yorkshire area to have made it easier for them to get to the airport. And again, we weren't successful in terms of drawing down money to support that. The third point, which the honourable gentleman for Don Valley is very familiar with, is that we put a lot of time and a lot of investment into developing a Freeport proposal for the Gateway East site. Now, I'll let the House into a bit of a secret. Not everybody in South Yorkshire was necessarily in favour of Freeport proposals because it came potentially with a range of measures that weren't universally popular, let me say. However, the decision that I took, working closely with the Mayoral Combined Authority, was that as part of a process to support Doncaster Sheffield Airport, as part of a process to make it more economically viability for the longer term, we would play the game and we would work closely with national government. And on that basis, I took the decision to put forward a Freeport proposal for Gateway East adjacent to Doncaster Sheffield Airport. That Freeport proposal was not successful, even though it was subsequently shown by, I think, the Treasury's own analysis that the bid that we put forward from South Yorkshire was actually scored as being better than some of those other bids that were ultimately successful. So we tried to get the East Coast Main Line station put in, and we put forward a proposal. That was unsuccessful. We did work to improve the intra-regional connectivity. That was unsuccessful. And then we put forward the Freeport proposal, and that was unsuccessful as a consequence of... Yeah, happy to give way.
The right honourable member's questioning my maths. Very good at maths. 5 and 3.5 is 8.5. It's 8.5 million. That's the loan. The £9.2 million that was used for the road, Peel put 11 million in. So they actually put in £1.8 million more than what the combined authority did. That's what I'm trying to say. Now, I'm not making excuses. What I'm trying to say here is, if the airport is the jewel in the crown of South Yorkshire, which is, I'm sure, is the combined authority's own words, why is it not being supported more than it should? And maybe, and I'm not giving excuses, I understand the honourable friend's comments about Freeport. So I'm trying to get an investment zone now, which hopefully will be even better than Freeport. I'm trying to get an investment zone for the area now. But if the combined authority are not seen to invest in its own infrastructure, in its own jewel in the crown, then what does that say to the government? What does it say to them? Are you prepared to invest in your own? Well, no, we're not. So what's the point? We've got to have a vision. And I think the honourable friend from Rother Valley has said exactly the same thing. That is what we've been lacking. Silo working, it's become Sheffield is trams and Doncaster is planes. And I'm afraid that's just not good enough.
I would really recommend that my honourable friend spends a bit of time with the honourable member for Sheffield South East, just to get a bit of a sense of some of the realities of local government finance. The reality is that the amount of money, the amount of revenue that the Mayor has to expend at any one time is very limited. The honourable member mentioned the 30 million of gain share. There's a very strict split around capital and revenue. So, and as the honourable member for Sheffield South East made the point, there are a range of other financial commitments that the mayoral combined authority has to service. There are other infrastructure investments that have to be made. And the job of the mayor is to look in the round and work out what money is available and where that money can be best deployed. And that's why, and because the honourable member didn't mention the 20 million, that's why the sum of 20 million is a very, very significant commitment by the mayoral authority. But as I said to him previously, in April 2022, when we'd gone into Purdah and I was no longer was the mayor for a couple more weeks, Peel Group indicated that it didn't wish to continue with developing the loan proposal at that time. So that was an offer that was there in good faith and had been worked up between senior officers in the mayoral combined authority and senior officials within Peel Group, and they took the decision that they didn't want to continue those conversations. That's the reality of it. Happy to give way.
Thank you for giving way. Can I say, what shows my disappointment at what sometimes I see in South Yorkshire is an intention by parts of South Yorkshire to see having a row with other parts of South Yorkshire as the way forward, rather than working collectively together, as is in instance the Manchester authorities appear to be able to do. You know, this isn't about Doncaster Airport versus Sheffield trams. Sheffield is a major city. You go around European major cities, they have a light rail system. Sheffield needs and wants a light rail system. And it shouldn't be about, well, we can have one or the other and we're going to fight each other over the scraps. It should be arguing collectively together for extra money for infrastructure that we each need in our areas to make the totality of our areas together. That's why Sheffield MPs are here supporting Doncaster Sheffield Airport tonight. So,
I'm getting confused about who's intervening on whom. The honourable gentleman has the floor. The honourable gentleman has intervened upon him. Have I just let the honourable gentleman intervene upon the honourable gentleman intervening?
Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm sorry if I confuse you. I hope I didn't confuse anybody else at the same time. Can I say I was intervening on my honourable friend to ask whether he agreed with me that this is all too common, unfortunately, among some people in South Yorkshire, starting a blame game between the constituent parts of the authority, rather than seeing us working collectively together, which is what from Sheffield we're here to do tonight.
Dan Jarvis.
Thank you. So I completely agree with the very important point that my honourable friend has just raised. The truth of the matter is that every member of Parliament in South Yorkshire wants Doncaster Sheffield Airport to stay open. We all do. And that's why I think collectively we are frustrated that we haven't had the opportunity to meet with a government minister around the table to voice our concerns in that kind of forum. It's a good thing that we're having this debate here tonight, but let's be honest about it. It is only a quirk of fate that we're able to have this elongated discussion. It's only because the business has ended sooner than would normally have been the case that honourable members have got the opportunity to put their concerns on record. I mean, I've been in this House now. Yes, happy to give way. Yeah.
I'd like to thank the right honourable gentleman for giving way. I'd just like to correct him on one point where he says the MPs for South Yorkshire. MPs for West Yorkshire are also very concerned about that, and that's why I've been supporting the honourable member for Don Valley and Rother Valley in their campaign as well. There seems to be quite a number of pointing of fingers at the mayor, pointing of fingers at the government, but actually the one that we need to be focusing on here is Peel Holdings, yeah? Okay? And what I'd like to ask the right honourable gentleman is, how do we get Peel Holdings to the table so that this can be discussed and actually resolved?
I'm very grateful to the honourable gentleman. I think he does make a really important point, and I completely recognise and I'm grateful for the support that has come from honourable members outside of South Yorkshire. I know there's very strong support from members in West Yorkshire, North Yorkshire as well, and further afield, North Nottinghamshire and the East Midlands as well. I don't think that there is anybody in this place who doesn't want to see the airport remain open. So I think that's why I'm just trying to express a bit of frustration that given the importance of the asset for the region, given the overwhelming cross-party support there is, I can't honestly understand why the Secretary of State I'm not having a go at the Minister because I know that this doesn't sit within her brief, and that the minister responsible is in the other place. I'm not in any way having a go at the minister. I just think those people who've been around for a while will understand that ministers really do have a duty and a responsibility to sit down and meet with their colleagues. And that's why I'm just genuinely frustrated that there hasn't been an opportunity. And I think even at this late hour, I still think there would be merit for members across the House, further afield than South Yorkshire, West Yorkshire, North Yorkshire and the Humber, and wherever, frankly, to get round the table in the department with the Minister, the Secretary of State, so that our concerns can be voiced in that forum. I think that would be a really constructive gathering, because in the end, we all want the same thing. None of us want to see the jobs go. None of us want to see South Yorkshire's economic potential undermined by the loss of this strategic asset. All of us want to see a regional airport strategy that works in the best interest of our regions. I have never been one of these people that has pitted the North against the South, because I think that is a completely kind of unhelpful metric that sometimes people... the Minister's looking around, I'm not for a moment suggesting anyone here is doing that. But sometimes, in the context of a conversation about levelling up, the North is pitted against the South and vice versa. I did note that there is an airport in Kent that closed a number of years ago that is about to reopen, and the government, rightly, are supporting that proposal. I think that's the right thing for the government to do. And I want people in Kent to have the best access to these facilities. But I also want people in South Yorkshire and in Doncaster, in the north of England, similarly to have access to this kind of infrastructure and these kind of facilities. We're going to have a new Prime Minister very shortly. He's a Yorkshire MP. There is a big opportunity for him to do something significant. The new Prime Minister knows his way around the Treasury. He knows what the art of the possible is, and there is a big opportunity for him still at this late hour. I will give way, yeah.
Just want to clarify what my honourable friend said. You said there's a chance for the Prime Minister to do something. And apart from having a meeting with members around in this room, what is this something which keeps being alluded to that the government is what you wanted the government to do? I'm still following. Is there a lever which the government isn't pulling that you're wanting? Because I think on our side we're saying the South Yorkshire Mayor, we want to maybe compulsory purchase. So what does the honourable member believe the government should be pulling?
Well,
Dan Jarvis.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As I think that the Right Honourable Gentleman for Doncaster North made very clear the option around the Civil Contingencies Act does provide a mechanism. Well, the Minister laughs. The legal advice that underpins the excellent work that the Right Honourable Member for Doncaster North and the Right Honourable Member for Doncaster Central have done is from one of the most kind of preeminent legal minds in our country, described by the Honourable Member for Don Valley as a Labour peer. The truth of the matter is that this is someone who's highly, highly respected within... Well, the Minister chunters from a sedentary... I think we're trying to be constructive here. And I think the proposal that was brought forward was absolutely one that was worthy of merit. And I hope very much that officials in the Minister's Department have looked at it closely, have taken legal advice. The letter that I think many of us co-signed from the Right Honourable Gentleman and from the Right Honourable Lady for Doncaster Central invited the Minister in a really sensible, grown-up, constructive way to meet with us to have a conversation about it. And we've never had that meeting. And that's very frustrating that we haven't had the opportunity to sit round the table and actually have a grown-up conversation. The Minister's yawning and looking at her watch. People's jobs are on the line and government ministers won't get round the table and meet with us. Well,
we won't have this conversation from a sedentary position. The Minister will very shortly be addressing the House and we'll be able to answer all these questions very shortly, I think. Dan Jarvis.
I will take the hint, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I will draw my remarks to a conclusion. Along with other honourable members, it was put to the Secretary of State at Transport Questions just recently that we thought there was merit in having a grown-up constructive conversation. The Secretary of State said that she didn't want to do that. I think that is a great shame. Can you imagine what it feels like tonight if you work at Doncaster Sheffield Airport and you can see the clock ticking down and you are hours, days away from losing your job, and government ministers won't even sit down with members of Parliament to hear their concerns? Will the Minister, I'm happy for the Minister to give way if she's happy to arrange an urgent meeting with members from across the House. In my time in this House, I can never remember a situation where a matter of such importance as this hasn't led to a ministerial meeting. Happy to give way to the Honourable...
Thank you for giving way. I just want to quickly go back and then we'll address the point that you're talking to at this moment in time. I believe that the loan, or the £20 million loan, was withdrawn around about the 12th of March and never actually made it to the Cabinet meeting which was going to sign it off. That's when it should have been signed off. Now, I believe there's no record of it in the minutes. Now, as I say, this is only what I'm led to believe. No record of it in the minutes. It wasn't there, and I don't believe the Mayor for Doncaster actually raised it either. So I think that's an important part, and maybe we can look at these minutes and see if it was there. And this is why I'm asking for a public inquiry so we can actually get. I also think the member, we're trying to be collegiate here. I've tried continually all the way through this, and I will continue to do the same. But I've been excluded from meeting after meeting from members on that side with regards to working groups and such like. And the Civil Contingencies Act, I've spoke with the Minister and the Secretary of State several times.
Dan Jarvis.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm mindful of your advice to draw matters to a conclusion. I just say to the Honourable Member, we're trying to save the airport here. So he may want to kind of sort of dig into the minutes, but as I've said to him previously, the offer was on the table. And in April of 2022, Peel indicated that it didn't wish to continue with developing the loan proposal at that time. That is the absolute fact of the matter. I think my final point is to return to the frustration that is held by many, that we haven't had the opportunity to meet with ministers, to impress upon them the importance of this issue. So I hope very much when the Minister comes to the dispatch box, she will take the opportunity to confirm that she will urgently convene a meeting and give members from right across the House and from all regions that have been represented the opportunity to have a constructive meeting with the Secretary of State, given the importance of the issue. I very much hope that she take the opportunity to confirm that the Secretary of State will be prepared to do that tonight.
Minister Catherine Fletcher.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and let me apologise to the House for the member for Barnsley was correct. I was yawning. It's because I was up at 5:30 this morning to go and open Bond Street Tube Station, which is a cracking example of the type of investment that people working together can deliver for people. But he's correct. I am flagging a touch, so I will attempt to make my remarks brief. Can I start by just congratulating my honourable friend for the member for Don Valley? He is truly possibly the best Fletcher in this House quite right now. It's an important debate. It's dead obvious that's how important it is to the people around here. I want to praise his tenacity in championing the issue. He cares about the future of the airport, he cares about his constituents, he cares about his friends and family, and I was really touched about him watching Vulcans. I've also too been to see an airport that's not there anymore in Woodford Airport and watching Vulcans as a child, and it is something that you miss and lose, and I share his passion for it, even though I don't have the aviation brief. This potential closure, the government is deeply disappointed that Peel Group have taken this difficult decision around Doncaster and Sheffield Airport. It's a commercial decision made by the owners of the airport, and I'm aware of the concerns that this decision has had on passengers who use the airport, the constituents represented by honourable members across the South Yorkshire region, but also those businesses, organisations and people who use the supply chain and work at the airport. I did set out many items earlier on today, so I will do a brief recap for members and honourable members here. I need to be clear that whilst the UK government supports airports, it does not own or operate them. And we've heard from several contributions opposite the idea that a meeting would magically unlock that fact. And I don't believe it to be so, but I will return to the topic of meetings. But devolved administrations, local authorities, combined authorities, are in other areas of the UK frequently shareholders in airports which serve their communities and regional airport structures, as is the case with Manchester Airports Group, Birmingham Airport, London Luton Airport, and more recently, as mentioned, Teesside International Airport. The UK aviation market operates predominantly in the private sector. Airports invest in their infrastructure to attract airlines and passengers, and whilst airlines are well placed to deliver services to their customers by responding to demand for different routes. Now, Madam Deputy Speaker, since the announcement by Peel Group of the review on the 13th of July into the future of Doncaster Sheffield, the government has been actively working with local stakeholders to encourage a future for aviation at the site. I understand the South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority and Doncaster County Council have been working during the review to explore options for a locally led solution, and the local authorities have written to Peel Group to pass on the details of the parties who are interested in discussing the potential to invest in the airport. And as the latest update today, I understand that Peel Group have already begun to engage with these parties interested in a commercial deal as of today. The Aviation Minister, Baroness Veer, met with Peel Group on the 19th of October, where she strongly encouraged them to look seriously at any commercial interest and engage with these parties, and has received of assurances that they would do so. The Aviation Minister has been strongly encouraging Peel Group to consider the local and combined authorities' offers of financial bridging support if they require time to take further forward discussions with any investors. And I understand there are some questions of the stepping stone to medium-term strategic viability that needs to be addressed, but that has been discussed between the Aviation Minister, Baroness Veer, and Peel. The government has remained engaged with all parties throughout the period of the review, and since the decision to close the airport, there has been regular contact between officials and representatives from Peel Group, South Yorkshire Combined Authority and Doncaster City Council. The government is committed to encouraging local leaders and Peel Group to work together and find a solution for the site that will benefit local people and the regional economy. Now, this has been mentioned in the debate by the Honourable Member for Barnsley East, if I get that correct. Doncaster Sheffield currently offers a base for the National Police Air Service and also 2XL Aviation, a private company who delivers search and rescue services from the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency. I'm happy to confirm to her, as she raised in the debate, that Baroness Beer has met with 2XL and understands that there are contingency plans in place, and officials have also engaged with the Home Office about the National Police Air Service fixed wing. Both of which mean that whilst Lord Faulkner, as mentioned by the Right Honourable Member for Doncaster North, is, I'm sure, an eminent legal brain, he has had the opportunity to meet with Baroness Beer and engage whether the threshold for the civil contingencies has been met. And it is necessarily extremely high, as set out by, I think, his former colleague, the CDL, in 2004 when it was brought in during the Blair government. And unfortunately, Baroness Beer, despite Lord Faulkner's suggestion, is not happy that it is a national emergency when both of the services that have been met with or engaged with can put in contingency plans, and are further assured that Peel are working with them to make sure that any bridging period is covered. That doesn't cover the essence of the debate, but I just want to offer the Honourable Lady that assurance. The government has made clear to Peel Group that it needs to manage the closure process effectively and in consultation with operators at Doncaster Sheffield Airport, and Peel themselves have publicly stated that they will work with these operators to minimise the disruption to their operations and customers. We've pressed Peel Group to honour this, or when I say we, I mean my colleagues within the department, and to avoid disruptions to these important operations. The Civil Contingencies Act has been mentioned. It requires a really high bar to be engaged. It requires an emergency, which is designed as a situation that threatens serious damage to human welfare, damage to the environment, and war or terrorism, which may affect the security of the United Kingdom. And whilst, as someone who has used Robin Hood Airport, as was at the time, and understand how important it is not the advice that the department that is getting that that level of threshold has been reached to engage the Civil Contingencies Act. As the Transport Secretary highlighted, we're just not persuaded there, and I think we can all agree that it would be much better for all if a commercial solution could be found to minimise the disruption to these operations. I'm happy to.
Very grateful, and obviously we have a disagreement, as the member for Doncaster's outlined. But could I just press the Minister to explain to the House and to us why the Secretary of State is refusing to meet with members on this side of the House? Can she not this evening just to commit to a meeting?
The Honourable Lady, bear with me a moment. I am actually planning to address that. I will just kind of address the call for the public inquiry made, but so passionately by my Honourable friend for Don Valley. The public inquiry is an extremely high bar to be made, and whilst we have gone away and looked to understand the grounds potentially, the recommendation is that actually a locally led review and a locally led solution could seek to have similar effects and perhaps more positive effects over a shorter timescale than the full public inquiry that he calls for. He notes that the South Yorkshire and Mayoral Combined Authority and Doncaster Council are integral to developing commercially viable solutions. Discussions between the Authority Council and Peel are still ongoing to assess the credibility of these investors. As on my fund outlined, powers do sit with the local authorities, and as such I think it would be right for the local authorities and their leaders to push for a locally led review rather than a public inquiry at this time, and I will give way.
Thank you for giving way.
Fletcher.
Would not that be people marking their own homework? That's all I'm concerned about.
Minister.
I probably am at the point where my expertise within the aviation portfolio is far outweighed by the Honourable Member for Whitley, who sat on the bench in front, and maybe he would be able to offer you some advice on that. But I want to just return to the point of meetings, Madam Deputy Speaker. I think I've mentioned that Lord Faulkner and his legal advisers met with Baroness Beer about the Civil Contingencies Act option. And I am reliably advised that meetings have been offered to the South Yorkshire Mayor with the DFT officials by the Secretary of State as a prelude to further meetings. DFT officials are also meeting weekly with the local authorities, often involving the Chief Executive of Doncaster Council. And I will happily give way to the honourable gentleman if this is not correct. I'm also informed by officials with, when he was previously Aviation Minister, the Honourable Member for Witney convened a meeting between Mayor Ben Houchin and Mayor Oliver Coppard in which this was included. So let me just mention some of the other areas.
I'm very grateful to the Minister for
Roads and Regions.
It's great she's listed those meetings, but she's failed to answer the point that myself and many of my colleagues have made the point that this Secretary of State sat there at Transport Questions and 3 times refused to meet us. She's not here this evening. Why won't the Minister just agree to meet with Labour members?
I unfortunately cannot acquiesce to her request because it is not within my portfolio. I am extremely happy to pass on her request to the Aviation Minister, but I'm sure that you wouldn't want me to be making commitments about you at the dispatch box when I wasn't here to do it. We've met the emergency services, we've met Lord Faulkner, we've met 2XL, we've met with the police, we've met with the local mayor, we've organised meetings, and I offer gently to several of the benches opposite that this just all seem a bit panicky when there's a bit of the to-do list being listed in terms of what's been done, when my honourable friend for Don Valley has been running such an effective campaign for 104 days. No, I'm going to make some progress now. The Honourable Member for Rother Valley spoke passionately about Yorkshire's vision and future and his desire for a vision and joining up of the dots. As a very nascent Transport Minister, I share the idea that joining up of the dots and setting out a coherent vision for the future is really important, be that for the North West, South Yorkshire, Northern powerhouse of the country, and I commend him for his point. Just to conclude, I want to congratulate everybody for participating in what has been possibly one of the most lengthy adjournment debates, and certainly it will be, as my first one that lasts long in the memory. And I'm happy, and I'm delighted to hear everybody sharing their memories and their passion for it. I think in the spirit of working together, I look forward to maybe results coming through. Doncaster Sheffield Airport is important to constituents across the House and the region, and I have no doubt about the strength of the feelings. I want to call on Peel Group to continue to work with stakeholders at this point to ensure the impacts of their decision to close the airport are minimised or another solution is found. This government is clear in its wish to see the local leaders work on a solution which best serves the interests of the wider community, and the department stands ready to help. I'm pleased that potential investors have come forward and registered interest, and I would reiterate my desire for Peel Group to engage in the best possible way. I am reassured that they've given these permits to Baroness Fear, and I hope seriously that they will consider the bridging support offered to allow for commercial decisions to be moving forward. The government will continue to work with all parties to exhaust all options to preserve the airport, but I'm nearly done, but recognises that the final decision of whether or not accepted sits with Peel because it is a commercial airport site. I'd like to thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I think it's been a really good debate.
Thank you. The question is that this House do now adjourn. As mayors that opinion say aye. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Order. Order.